Hi, I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Sophie, and we are here to help guide you to the why behind your wellness why.
Come join us on our journey. Hello, hello.
Hey, Chelsea.
How are you today?
I'm good. Glad it's a Friday. How are you?
I'm also glad it's a Friday. That's why I sound so enthusiastic. It's also sunny and beautiful weather here, and it's crazy to me how much different my mood and energy levels are when it's sunny out versus not.
Well, it's a little gloomy here in Chicago today. We had some flurries this morning.
Sorry to bring that up. Sensitive topic.
Yeah.
So we have decided that we're going to do a little recap to what this podcast is and why we're here and what we're all about. We started this podcast about a year ago now in December 2021, I believe. And so since it's been a year, we have new listeners. We are excited to reintroduce and just give a brief intro to who we are.
Yes, I love it. So I will start. I'm Sophie Rambo. I am a personal trainer in Chicago, Illinois. I do in-person sessions for the most part, some virtuals, and a couple online clients. With my clients, I like to focus on having them feeling better after the session than when they walked in. I like to look at the big picture with them. Obviously, our goals are to get stronger because we love to see that and be pain-free, bone, joint health, all that good stuff. And then some people have more specific ones to lose weight for their wedding, to prepare to become a mother after having a child. I also work with men and work on bigger lifts because deadlifting is my personal baby. Last year, we're recapping a little bit, I deadlifted over twice my body weight. I deadlifted 240 pounds, which was very fun.
If you don't follow her on social media, you need to because she always amazes me with her strength. It's so inspiring. And I'm not just saying that, but I am very honest about that.
Thanks, Chelsea. And I do have to say, I did have a little injury this past year. So my why changed a little bit last year, which we will talk about whys a little bit and how they can change and that it's okay for them to change. And I did become a little bit more focused on upper body and really strengthening my pull-up game. But
Love that.
that's it for me for now. Chelsea, take it away. Tell me about yourself.
So I am Chelsea Rice. I am a registered dietitian. I'm located in North Carolina, as I mentioned at the beginning when I was talking about the weather, but I work virtually. So I work with individuals all over the nation. I work with mostly women, but I do have a couple of male clients as well. My primary focus with all of my clients is helping them feel good, both physically and mentally. But my biggest goal with every single one of my clients is to not sacrifice food or fun. And what I mean about that by that is that I don't think anyone should be restricting themselves, even if their goal is weight loss or they have a medical condition. There are realistic ways to include good food into your daily routine. Something else that I really like to work with clients is making things fit with their lifestyle. So, for example, kind of like Sophie mentioned with whys changing, which we'll get into that a little bit, is I have worked with clients through all different stages of life. So, from getting a new job and traveling for that job and how to manage their nutrition around that, to starting to have a family and postpartum and nutrition around that, all the way through menopause. I have some women that are going through menopause and managing their nutrition around that. So I work with an array of different individuals, but always like to make sure to, number one, make sure you're enjoying what you're eating. And number two, do it in a realistic way that fits with your lifestyle. So I work with clients one-on-one. I have a women's group program talking all things women's health, gut health, all of that type of stuff. And then I also do some things with meal planning. I do different lab testing, like hormone testing. And then I do some corporate wellness as well. So doing things like lunch and learns and workshops and that type of stuff. So I do a lot of different things, fun things like the podcast on the side, but that is a little bit about me.
Guys, Chelsea is great. If you ever have any nutrition questions, she is your girl. And the reason we paired up together is because we really believe in each other's styles, because we love moderation, even moderation sometimes, because we need to live a little. We are only here once.
Yep.
And we are so much more than our body, which we try and tell you guys all the time. And the body is a system. It is all connected: mind, body, gut, all of it.
Yeah. The other thing I'll throw in there too that I didn't mention is I also love creating new recipes and recipe testing. And so I do have on my website, I do have a recipe blog with some different ideas and help individuals to, once again, kind of learn to have fun in the kitchen and be more confident in the kitchen and not spend a lot of like time or money or get stressed about it. So that's just another fun side piece to what I do as well.
Perfect. Love it. And Chelsea, has your why changed at all recently?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I think I probably said this in one of our early podcasts, but now that a whole year has gone by, it's become even more relevant. So Sophie and I know each other because we both worked at the same health club in Chicago. So I used to live in Chicago. I moved in the fall of 2021. So when we started this podcast, my life had changed completely upside down from living in a high rise in the city with no car to living in the suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina. So it had totally shifted. My day-to-day life shifted. I was working in a health club. Now I'm working full-time virtual from home. Everything around me had shifted. And so I was still trying to figure out how that impacted my health and how that impacted my movement and my exercise and my nutrition. And grocery shopping was different. And like I said, moving was different. Moving around, that's what I meant by that, not like moving in terms of moving locations, but all of that had changed. And so now that a year has gone by and I'm more settled, I've just really led into that, and that has changed my why a little bit. I won't go like too much into detail on that, but yes, short answer is yes, my why has absolutely changed, and mostly it's changed because my life has changed upside down in the past year.
That's good. We want things in our life to be fluid and changeable sometimes, because we need to be able to adjust, which is what we spoke about in our last podcast, and trying to sometimes shift your goals with what's going on in your life, which is more realistic sometimes than really beating yourself up for not achieving a goal or being able to do something that you set maybe months ago, but now you moved. So it's like, oh, well, I wanted to, I was walking 10,000 steps a day or more because I lived in a city and I didn't have a car.
Yeah.
But now I have, I live in the suburbs and I have a car. So like I am going to be happy with 7,000.
Yeah.
Number.
That's a great example. And another big one that's sticking out to me as an example, and you and I have talked offline about this, is running. So in the city, I was a big runner. I then ended up getting injured. So towards the end of me living in Chicago, I didn't do it as much, but I still love to go out, especially like living on the lake, love to go out on the lakefront. And I found that it was so enjoyable for me from like a stress standpoint. So I did it towards the end, not really for as much exercise, but more for like stress management. And here, the joy isn't there anymore with living in, again, more of a suburb, running around a neighborhood. Again, I know I could like drive somewhere and find a cool place to run, but it's just not quite the same. So that's another example of, because my environment has changed, my exercise regimen has changed, my stress management routine has changed, all because of environmental factors. That's one example. But again, so much in life can change. So your whys can definitely change around that, and what you're doing can change around that as well, like Sophie mentioned. Okay, Sophie. So we obviously have this podcast called Wellness Why. Let's take a couple of minutes and talk about what we mean by Wellness Why and what this podcast is about.
Yes, I love it. And it's a little complicated, but I will do my best. So, I have always been really big on wanting to know the why behind things. And I feel like Chelsea's the same way. Again, that's why we're a great pair. And that's why I love science. Like as a kines major in school, I loved learning about like muscle physiology and like how literally what muscles are made up of and how they work. But with that, that's a very tiny level. What Chelsea and I were just saying before this off air, like knowing about protein, like why we need that, like our body, like the fuel, like lifting weights, why you need to do that for your bone density, your joint health, like so many things that I just feel like aren't always talked about on social media. People are always just telling you what to do, not really like what it's good for, aka why you could be doing some things.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Obviously, that's why we're here, like Sophie said. But you're totally right. I see it. I see it with my one-on-one clients, unfortunately, almost on a weekly basis, in terms of they'll bring me a situation where either a doctor said something to them, they read something on social media, their friend told them something, another health practitioner said something about like, you should do XYZ. So you gave a great example. Like, you should eat X amount of grams of protein. And my first question to every single client that brings something like that to me is asking them, did they explain why? And 99.9% of the time, the answer is no. And as humans, to make changes, which again, that's like a whole different segment of like making habit changes. We have a podcast on habit change if you want to listen to it. But to make a habit change and make it be a habit, it is so much easier and realistic and will turn into a lifelong habit if you know why. If someone just tells you what to do and you have no idea why you're doing it, number one, how do you even know it's right for you, if you should be doing it, if it's appropriate to do? But number two, is that change going to last? Most likely not. And so that's one half of what this podcast is about. So some of our podcasts are going to be more like scientific based, educational. And then there's kind of another side area of our podcast as well, which Sophie kind of already mentioned in terms of like talking about our whys. So the why behind why we do things, the why behind why health is important to us, and then kind of getting into like the mind body connection, psychological side of things of like habit change, goal setting. I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit further, Sophie.
There's just so much information out there. And I feel like Chelsea mentioned, like everyone is different. So you just need to know like what works for you. And like my goal shouldn't be your goal or Chelsea's goal. All of our lifestyles are different. We have a goal podcast on that, but like no two people are the same. Like, we need to get better at not comparing ourselves to anybody else and stay in your own lane. That way, no one can get in your way. And figuring out your why, like Chelsea said, can really help get you that edge and give you that extra motivation to stay on track. And honestly, figuring out your why can also really just help you figure out who you are a little bit more and help you stay true to your goals and not let someone else give you crap of like, oh, they're not going out again, or oh, they're not drinking again. And you're like, yeah, no, I'm not. Because
Hmm.
that, like, I don't feel like it,
Yeah,
you know?
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's what some of our podcasts are too, are just reminders. And I sometimes think we all need that. I even said we've like posted our last podcast, which we had recorded a couple of weeks before we had posted it. And I even like listened back to it because even though we recorded it and we were the ones talking, I usually don't listen back to our podcast just because it's weird listening to my own voice. But there were really good reminders. And I was really sick last week with the flu. And so I was kind of in this like funk and rut with being in a routine and just kind of getting down on myself. And so even me, I needed those reminders. So that's part of these podcasts are more education science based. Part of them are a little bit more from like a psychological kind of getting in our own brain, getting in our own body, talking about like the inside of our body. And then part of them are just building a community, being there for you, being a resource of knowing that like we're here to support you and everybody's different and all of that type of stuff as well.
Yes, I love it. I do want to highlight some of our podcasts from last year.
Yes, let's
Um,
do it. I love that.
I am just going to pick like five. I love Your Ever Changing Why. Then there's some good mindfulness around eating and exercise, fat loss myths, fitness and nutrition myths in the gym, protein 101, and I think our last one. I really think learning kind of to change your goals with what's going on in your life and how like the seasons can change. And I feel like that would be a really good one to listen to now with it being the beginning of the year.
Hmm.
People maybe wanting to set new goals or not wanting to set new goals from feeling pressure. I think it could just be good and refreshing listen for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'll also point out the ever-changing why because I agree. I think with it being, especially now, like the end of January, this might go out at the beginning of February. I don't know yet. But whenever you're listening to it, it's going to be either end of January, beginning of February. And kind of like thinking back to if you did anything in January. So like you started a new routine, you did a challenge, you did dry January, what, and even if you didn't do anything, like I didn't do anything, so I'm not trying to say you should have, but besides the point, like this is a really good time to kind of get into your own mind and body and be like, what am I doing? Why am I here? From a health perspective, like what am I doing with my health? Why am I doing it? Why is it important to me? And where do I want to go in the next few months? So the ever changing why I think is a really good one because it kind of talks about what we mean by your why and how to find your why and how it can change. And then I agree, our last two, the seasons for a reason, and talking all things self care, burnout, and boundaries are two good ones to listen to. The last one that you didn't mention that I think is also a great listen this time of year is our 4 foundations of wellness, which was launched in October. So that if you scroll back through, it's called 4 Foundations of Wellness. It goes through what Sophie and I describe as if you're wanting to get started, or maybe you're a little bit lost in your health journey right now, kind of like what we recommend a good starter packet of where you should be working on, or what's really the foundation of your health and talking through those different topics. So that's a great one as well.
Love it. I also want to mention that Chelsea and I sometimes bring on guest speakers, which looking forward to our future ones and loved all of ours last year. And if there's ever a topic you ever want to hear about or interested in, please reach out, let us know. We're always here.
Yes, absolutely. And if there is someone, whether it be like a health professional or you have your own wellness journey that you think would be worth sharing and want to connect with other people, always reach out to us. Again, not every single podcast will be a guest speaker podcast, but we do love having guests on here and would love any suggestions or referrals if you have someone that you think would be a good guest on here, or maybe it's you as well.
Yay, I love it. Can't wait for this year.
Me too. I was going to say that you took the words out of my mouth. I'm really excited for this year and to continue this podcast, and we look forward to you following along. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, listeners.
Bye.